It was just after 9:30 p.m. when the knocking started. Karis Wilcox was alone in her Vermont home, curled up on the couch with a book. The knocking wasn't aggressive. It was methodical, patient. 3 taps, a pause, 3 more. She walked to the door and peered through the peephole. 2 children stood on her porch, a boy and a girl, maybe 10 or 11 years old. They wore dark hoodies, heads slightly bowed. Something about them felt wrong. Karis opened the door halfway. "Can we come in?" the boy asked. His voice was flat, emotionless. "What do you need?" she asked. "We need to use your phone," the girl said, still not looking up. Karis felt her stomach tighten. She couldn't explain why, but every instinct in her body screamed at her to close the door. Then the boy looked up. His eyes were completely black. No iris, no white, just solid, endless black. "Please," he said again. "We need to come inside." Karis slammed the door, locked it. When she looked through the peephole again, they were gone. But here's the thing. Karis Wilcox isn't alone. Hundreds of people across the world have reported the exact same encounter. The same children, the same black eyes, the same chilling request. So tonight we're going to find out, what are the black-eyed children, and why do they want inside your home? Welcome back to Mystery Maniac, where we dive deep into the unexplained, the unsettling, and the downright terrifying. Tonight's case is one that's haunted the internet for nearly 3 decades, a modern legend that refuses to die. The black-eyed children, also known as BEKs, they appear at night, always in pairs, always asking permission to enter, and always with those eyes. Solid black, lifeless, wrong. Are they demons, aliens, lost spirits, or something our minds created to explain the unexplainable? Stick with me, because by the end of this video you might start double-checking your locks at night. Let's begin. The modern black-eyed children legend began on a cold January night in 1996 in Abilene, Texas. A journalist named Brian Bethel was sitting in his car outside a movie theater, writing a check for his internet bill. It was around 9:45 p.m. The parking lot was nearly empty. Then came the knock on his window. 2 boys stood outside his car, both around 10 to 14 years old. One wore a hoodie, the other a simple pullover. They looked ordinary, normal, but Brian felt an overwhelming sense of dread the moment he saw them. He rolled down his window halfway. "Hey, mister," one of them said. "We want to see a movie, but we forgot our money. Can you give us a ride home?" Brian hesitated. Something felt off. Their tone was too calm, too rehearsed. "We need to get inside your car," the other boy added, more insistent now. That's when Brian noticed their eyes, completely black, from edge to edge. No pupils, no whites, just a deep, unnatural void. Panic hit him like a wave. He didn't know why, but his body was screaming at him to get out of there. He fumbled with the gear shift, started the engine, and drove off without another word. When he looked back in his rearview mirror, the boys were gone. Brian posted his experience on an early internet mailing list, and within days, others began coming forward. People who had experienced the exact same thing. Different cities, different years, but the same black-eyed children, the same eerie requests, and just like that, a legend was born. But here's the thing. The idea of children with black eyes didn't start in 1996. Throughout history, cultures around the world have spoken of similar beings. In European folklore, they were called changelings, demonic entities that replaced human children. In Japanese mythology, they're linked to Yurei, restless spirits trapped between worlds. Even Native American tribes have stories of shadow children who appear at dusk, trying to lure the living into the darkness. So the question becomes, Did Brian Bethel stumble upon something ancient? Or did he accidentally create a modern myth that tapped into our deepest fears? Either way, the reports didn't stop. In fact, they've only gotten worse. In the summer of 2001, a woman named Kelly was staying at a roadside motel just outside of Dallas. She was traveling alone, passing through on a work trip. It was nearly midnight when she heard the knock. Kelly wasn't expecting anyone. She walked to the door and looked through the peephole. A young girl stood there, maybe 12 years old. Long dark hair, pale skin, hands folded in front of her. "Can you help me?" the girl asked softly. "I'm lost." Kelly felt uneasy, but the girl seemed harmless. She opened the door, keeping the chain lock in place. "What do you need, sweetheart?" Kelly asked. The girl didn't answer right away. She just stared at the crack in the door. "I need to come inside," she said. Her voice was flat, monotone. Kelly's heart started to race. Something wasn't right. "Where are your parents?" Kelly asked. The girl tilted her head slightly, like she was confused by the question. "They're waiting," she said. "But I need to come inside first." That's when Kelly noticed her eyes. Solid black. No reflection. No life. Kelly slammed the door and called the front desk. By the time security arrived 3 minutes later, the girl was gone. No trace. No footprints. Nothing. Kelly checked out that night and never went back. In 2008, a man named Tom was living in a remote farmhouse in rural Vermont. The nearest neighbor was over 2 miles away. One night, around 11 p.m., Tom heard knocking on his front door. Heavy, deliberate. He grabbed a flashlight and opened the door. 2 boys stood on his porch, both wearing outdated clothing. Dark jackets, jeans that looked like they were from the 1980s. "Our car broke down," one of them said. "Can we use your phone?" Tom glanced past them. There was no car in sight, no headlights, no tire tracks in the gravel driveway. "Where's your car?" Tom asked. The boys didn't answer. They just stood there, staring at the ground. "We need to come inside," the second boy said. Tom felt a chill run down his spine. He stepped back and started to close the door. That's when both boys looked up at the same time. Their eyes were completely black, empty, soulless. Tom slammed the door and locked it. He watched through the window as the 2 boys stood on his porch for nearly 10 minutes. They didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there in the dark. Then, without a sound, they turned and walked into the woods. Tom never saw them again. In 2013, a gas station attendant named Marcus was working the night shift in rural Ohio. It was a slow night. No customers for hours. Around 2 a.m., the door chimed. 2 children walked in, a boy and a girl. Both looked around 9 or 10. They didn't say anything. They just walked straight to the counter and stared at Marcus. "Can I help you?" Marcus asked. "We need a ride," the girl said. No emotion, no inflection. Marcus frowned. "Where are your parents?" The boy leaned forward slightly. "We need you to take us. Now." Marcus felt his chest tighten. Something was very wrong. "I can't leave the store," he said, trying to stay calm. "But I can call someone for you." The children didn't move. They just kept staring. That's when Marcus saw their eyes. Pitch black, reflectionless. He backed away from the counter. "You need to leave." The children stood there for a moment longer. Then, without a word, they turned and walked out into the parking lot. Marcus watched them through the window. They walked past the gas pumps, past the road, and disappeared into the darkness. When Marcus reviewed the security footage the next morning, the children didn't appear on camera. The door never opened. The chime never rang. But Marcus knows what he saw. In 2016, a woman in Manchester England, posted her experience on Reddit. She was home alone one evening when she heard scratching at her apartment door. Not knocking, scratching. She looked through the peephole and saw two children standing in the hallway, both with their heads down. "Hello?" she called through the door. "We're lost," one of them said. A boy. His voice was soft, almost a whisper. "Where do you live?" she asked. "We need to come in," the other child said. A girl. Same emotionless tone. The woman felt a wave of dread wash over her. She didn't know why, but she felt an overwhelming urge to open the door, like something was pulling her toward it. She resisted. "I'm calling the police," she said. The children didn't respond. They just stood there. Then slowly, both of them looked up. Their eyes were solid black. The woman screamed and stumbled backward. When she looked through the peephole again, they were gone. Building security confirmed no children had entered or exited the building that night. So what do all these encounters have in common? First, the black-eyed children always appear in pairs. Never alone. Never in groups larger than two. Second, they always ask for permission. They need to be invited in. Whether it's into a home, a car, or a building, they can't enter without consent. Third, their voices are emotionless, flat, almost robotic. Fourth, they create an overwhelming sense of dread. Witnesses describe feeling paralyzed, terrified, even physically sick in their presence. And fifth, they vanish without a trace. No footprints, no reflections, no evidence they were ever there. So what are they? Some believe they're demons, entities that feed on fear and need permission to cross thresholds, just like vampires in old folklore. Others think they're alien hybrids, experiments gone wrong, children with something cold and inhuman behind their eyes. There's also the theory that they're lost spirits, souls trapped between worlds, desperate to find a way back into the living realm. But then there are the skeptics. Psychologists suggest these encounters could be explained by sleep paralysis, false memories, or even mass hysteria fueled by internet folklore. Some argue the legend is simply a modern myth, a story that evolved from our collective fear of the uncanny, the fear of something that looks human but isn't. And yet, the reports keep coming. Year after year, different countries, different witnesses, same story. In recent years, the black-eyed children legend has exploded online. TikTok is flooded with alleged encounters. Reddit threads dissect every new sighting. YouTube channels like this one keep the mystery alive. And the encounters haven't stopped. In 2021, a man in Arizona reported two black-eyed children knocking on his RV door at 3 a.m. In 2022, a family in Oregon claimed they saw two children standing in their backyard, staring at their house for hours. Just last year, a woman in Australia posted doorbell footage showing two children standing motionless on her porch. When she opened the door, they were gone. Whether these are real encounters, elaborate hoaxes, or something in between, one thing is clear. The black-eyed children legend refuses to die. And maybe that's because, deep down, we all fear the same thing. The idea that something out there is pretending to be human. Waiting, watching, asking to be let in. So here's what we're left with. Are the black-eyed children real? Or are they a psychological phenomenon? A shared nightmare born from the internet age? We know the legend started with Brian Bethel in 1996. But we also know similar stories exist in folklore stretching back centuries. We know witnesses describe the same behaviors, the same black eyes, the same overwhelming dread. But we also know there's no physical evidence, no photographs, no bodies, no proof. So maybe the real question isn't whether they're real. Maybe it's this. If they knock on your door tonight, will you let them in? Because according to every single witness who's ever encountered them, once you open that door, Once you give them permission, there's no going back. Thanks for watching Mystery Maniac. If this story gave you chills, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the unexplained. And hey, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had a strange encounter with children who didn't seem quite right? Drop your story in the comments below. Until next time, keep your doors locked. And whatever you do, don't let them in. Stay curious, stay cautious, and I'll see you in the next mystery.